So, how do we prevent the complications of immobility? In the integumentary system, the major complication of immobility is skin breakdown, primarily pressure ulcers, but we can also have venous stasis ulcers because immobility decreases venous return. Um, and so we may actually have different types of ulcers. We need to be doing a skin breakdown risk assessment on each patient. And we need to assess the skin of each patient because if they come into us with already developing wounds, we need to start treating those immediately. We also need to have those documented because because Medicare will not pay for care for a wound that develops in a facility. They will not pay that facility to care for the wound. Uh, Typically, we want to turn or change positions of immobile patients every 1 to 2 hours. The standard has been every 2. I have known patients who really need to be turned every hour. If they're particularly fragile, very thin, they need to be turned every hour. We need to limit chair sitting to 1 hour. That's a real issue in a nursing home, a long-term care facility, when you don't have the staff to get people up and down out of the chair every hour. They tend to put patients in the chair. They stay there for 3 to 4 hours until lunchtime, and then they may lay down for a nap. And so that's a really long time to be sitting on the coccyx. We need to position patients in neutral physiologic position with appropriate supports to maintain their limbs in correct alignment. And that's going to protect the muscles and joints, but it also can protect skin. So we might need to, if we have a very emaciated patient who is contracted into fetal position, for example, we might need to put some padding between knees and between ankles. So we want to position that patient in neutral physiologic position with the appropriate supports. We want to make sure those patients are getting adequate nutrition and hydration. If you remember from the integumentary section, inadequate protein and inadequate hydration are major contributors to skin breakdown. So we want to make sure they're getting adequate nutrition and hydration. We want to give very good skin care. Elders may not need to be bathed head to toe every day because their skin tends to be drier. And if we dry out that skin, we make it more fragile. That's an individual assessment, though. There are patients who maybe perspire heavily still, even though they're older, and they probably do need to be bathed daily. So that's an individual assessment, but we need to be making sure we're taking really good care of that skin, keep it moisturized, handle it gently, so we're not beginning wounds. We also need to keep skin clean and dry. Patients who are incontinent or who perspire heavily may need more frequent skincare. Sorry. There are special surfaces for patients who are at increased risk for skin breakdown, and we need to be familiar with what's available in our facility and with how to use it properly. I had a patient once who had an airbed overlay on a mattress that was provided by, I believe it may have been provided by hospice, but this overlay had several individual cells for air in the overlay, and there was a motorized pump that continually pumped air through those cells. And so the pressure in each cell changed, so that changes the amount of pressure and where the pressure is greatest continually on the patient's skin. So it decreases the risk of skin breakdown. Someone accidentally kicked the plug to the motor out of the wall. It was discovered about an hour later, and the patient, who was very frail, had a stage 2 wound. And that's because those cells, when they're filled with air, are a cushion. But when they're deflated, there's a ridge around the edge that makes the cell, and that created an opportunity for skin breakdown. So make sure that if equipment, special equipment is in use, that it's being used. We talked in the integumentary section also about air fluidized mattresses. They have, I believe they have chair pads, and they have just beds with just an insert at the coccyx in the bottom part of the bed. But that those air fluidized mattresses also need to be used properly. One thing to know about those is that you don't cover that surface with a sheet. It needs to be cleaned between patients and on a regular basis when one patient is using it. But if you put a sheet over it, you lose part of the benefit of that. Patients who are able to move, we need to teach them to shift their weight every 15 minutes. And sometimes it's easier, instead of watch the clock and every 15 minutes, we teach them a specific cue every time the commercial comes on, or after every 2 or 3 songs, something like that, where they shift their weight every 15 minutes or so to prevent skin breakdown. The next section, we're going to talk about how to prevent pulmonary complications.